No idea how corrupt our government is. The American people think our government is just kind of corrupt. Hey fam, check this out. The Pentagon said there was an accounting error, and that's why they sent $6.2 billion more to Ukraine. Oops, I guess. Don't worry, guys. It's only $6 billion. You think you're going to convince me that you just lost $6.2 billion? You think I'm a fool? You think I'm a goof? You think I'm an idiot? Pentagon think we're dumb, guys. They think we're dumb. I'm supposed to give benefit of the doubt to the Pentagon, who can't pass an audit. They failed 5 audits in a row, but I'm supposed to give them benefit of the doubt. I told y'all from day one that the Ukraine proxy war was a massive money laundering scheme. Just imagine you're working as a cashier and you fail 5 audits in a row. Imagine you're working as a cashier and you lose $600, let alone $6.2 billion. What will happen to your ass? That's how there's never accountability for the ruling class. But God forbid a customer service worker gets your order wrong. People.
What's poppin'? My friends, my family. Welcome back. Welcome back to Nick at Night. It's good to be doing this again. So I was off Nick at Night for 2 weeks. Kind of nervous because it's the first time I'm doing this show alone at the new place, getting situated here the last week, and everything that's surrounding it has been crazy. Much love to everyone who wished me well wishes, everything. A lot be going on, but things are starting to normalize. Things are starting to normalize again. Hopefully you guys enjoy these new videos I've been trying to do. I told you guys before, I don't really trust YouTube anymore. Since we're on YouTube, I'm going to use it until YouTube decides to get rid of us. But the 1 week ban that we got because CJ had the nerve to play a clip from European Parliament about COVID. I'm like, dude, YouTube can get rid of us at any time. So I need to start looking at other alternatives. So my boomer ass finally started to look into doing TikTok, Twitter style videos. I hope you guys appreciate and enjoy those. Not my standard format, but I think it's fun making them, that's for sure. Fun learning how to do a lot of the editing as well. So with that said, since we've been gone on Nick at Night for 2 weeks, y'all know I had to bring someone who had a power level at least 9,000. And so we got Zoya's Love. Zoya's Life. She joined me today. What's poppin', Zoya? Make sure you're on mute. There we go.
Hello. Hello, again, family. Hi, Nick. Congratulations on your move to the new place. So excited to be joining you today, to be dragging the military-industrial complex, Pentagon, and this entire murderous capitalistic system.
Aced. And I couldn't have anyone better to join me to Zoya's Love, Zoya's Life. But you need to show some grace, Zoya, because surely this was just a mistake on their behalf. Surely this was just a oopsie. Come on, man. Why you being so harsh? It's only $6 billion that they lost.
Yeah, and then they found another billion that they're gonna send on top of that. They're just doing it little by little, so we don't notice.
As I said, I told you guys on RBN since day one that this was a money laundering scheme. And then there's people who think they're wise, that NATO left, the Marianne Williamson left, the Bernie Sanders left, who think they are actually anti-imperialist, they think they're anti-establishment, when their votes and their support for this war leads directly to record Raytheon profits, record defense contractor profits, and a boom of the military-industrial complex. If you vote or if you support policy that leads to a boom in the military-industrial complex, you in no way, shape, or form a leftist. And call me a gatekeeper if you want. But I feel like that's not unreasonable. That's not unreasonable. So this is the story. And feel free to chime in anytime, Zoe. Great to have Zoe here. Make sure you guys share this, because this is great to have Nick at Night back again. We had a lot to talk about. We also going to get to that story where James O'Keefe exposes BlackRock and exposes our system. We covered Tim Pool calling out and exposing Rashid Tlaib for as being a Biden simp. when they asked her, would you endorse Joe Biden, even though he betrayed your climate plans and agenda? And now we have James O'Keefe, a right-wing journalist who is exposing BlackRock and capitalism. It's kind of weird how the right media, instead of the NATO left media, is not exposing these people like this. But anyway, let's continue this story. I'm asking you guys this question because you guys pay attention more to other independent media channels I do. Maybe I should ask CJ and Savvy and some other people. But I promise you that you are not going to see this story in the standard NATO left YouTube channels. The people that consider themselves progressives, but they're making asses of themselves to explain why they support a proxy war in Ukraine, like Marianne Williamson. You're not going to see her supporters cover this story. Because they cover the story, they realize they're being complicit in a massive corruption scheme. Pentagon says accounting error provides extra $6.2 billion in Ukraine military aid. Isn't it funny how there's never an error that helps the working class? Oops, we accidentally gave $6.2 billion more to homeless people. Actually gave billions more and food stamps more than we planned. You see how the accidents always go in one direction? That's why I'm calling your bullshit out. I'm not going to even accept the framing that this is some sort of error or accident. How dare you insult my intelligence, thinking that I'm gonna believe that this shit is an accident, that this is some sort of error. The Pentagon Tuesday claimed that accounting error has freed up an additional $6.2 billion to spend on military aid for Ukraine. Because so this random money popped up. Why not forfeit that towards the greater good, United States social spending? We are seeing an empire in collapse where Biden agreed on a deal with Republicans to cut social spending, while at the same time expanding the military industrial complex, expanding the police state, and they are funneling money to fund proxy war and expand empire all over the globe. I have studied history. I know it's just a little bit. Kind of how empires die, guys. We live in this shit right now. So anything you want to add before I continue?
Yeah, just to your point, over 42 million Americans face hunger each and every day, including 1 in 6 children, while programs like the F-35, who the Pentagon already admitted is a failure, cost $1.5 trillion. So where's the GOP outrage for that? All of these fiscal conservatives, why do they want to cut SNAP benefits and deny fellow Americans basic rights like healthcare that literally every developed country on earth provides, while completely ignoring the primary drain of all of our funds?
Absolutely. And that's why I love taking on fiscal conservatives. They have had a hard time reconciling with my position in this space. I get these conservatives all the time, like, man, I wish you would just drop the Marxism shit. I wish you would drop the socialism shit. I love your content otherwise. And I'm like extremely confused at this, because when you look at the people who support giant military spending, when you look at people who actually believe on treading on us, stealing our rights away, implementing a police state, that is the conservatives. They scream, like, even, and I'm talking about even the right-wing populists, so I'm talking about the quote-unquote best among them, right? They will scream defund the FBI, and we will agree with that, but they want to take that money and fund this fascist police force that is an occupier that steals and siphons the wealth of the working class via civil asset forfeiture more. They say they want small government, but they actually want a police state, nanny state, where police is everywhere, they're well-funded and well-armed, and we got a giant overextended military. You guys understand that the right wing, they said that Biden and Barack Obama depleted our military. This is the stuff they say. So they see what Jim Crow Joe and Barack Obama done. They're like, they're weak. Hillary Clinton saw what Barack Obama said, and what he did, for 8 years, and she thought he was weak. In 2015, the Hillary campaign said that they're going to have a more hawkish foreign policy compared to Barack Obama. And this is something that both parties agree on. Kevin McCarthy, fucking performative. Marjorie Taylor Greene, performative. Matt Gaetz, performative. All that hoopla. Are we going to withhold our vote for Kevin McCarthy so he can cut the military spending? We actually care about the people. We're going to fight the establishment, say these frauds that we called out. These frauds, Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I told you guys that he was never real, never serious, never serious. So then they went to support Kevin McCarthy and these Republicans who now increasing the military spending more on police. So I can't even respect the right's position. I can't even respect the capitalist position because they're inconsistent, wholly inconsistent. They don't care about small government. They just hate the poor. And what they don't understand is that when you believe in free market capitalism, when you have capitalists and oligarchs who power exceeds the government, that is what leads to mistrust. Do you guys understand me? Well, let me break this down. So, do you guys know why people didn't trust the vaccines? Even though the vaccines were safe and effective, YouTube, but people didn't trust them because they thought that Moderna and Pfizer bought the government off and was telling people and giving people advice based on stuff that will increase their profits. That is corporate capitalist capture of the government. Okay? So once the capitalists and the oligarchs that are not public servants become more powerful than the government and they influence the government's decision, that leads to mistrust because people think the government is bullshitting them to serve Pfizer. People don't understand that this is a Marxist argument. This is an argument against your system. But people are afraid to use correct language. They don't want to speak truth to power, which is not my thing. So when I call out capitalism, which I'm going to do in the next segment as well, it makes some people uncomfortable. But you can't be a coward. You got to call out the root causes of this. And there's so many people that are afraid to call out the root causes because they're afraid to lose right-wing audiences. So big props, because there are quite a few of them. Big props to the right-wingers who still listen, despite my willingness to call out this garbage system. But I find people who are afraid to use the C word to blame capitalism, I find that extremely cowardice. When it's looking at you right in the goddamn face. Don't worry, this can be the theme of the show if you guys want, because the next show, you're going to have a right-winger expose how BlackRock, once again, capital that's stronger and more powerful than the government, they bought our government off. And they influence everything that goes on in our society. But people think socialism is the problem. No, it's when private capital becomes more powerful than the will of the people in our central planning model, which is the government. You guys understand? I'm gonna get to you guys.
Can I quote a famous? Can I quote a famous communist really quickly? He said,
anytime you want, Zoe, anytime you want.
I love you, Nick. Every gun that is made, every warship launched, every rocket fired signifies in the final sense a theft from those who hunger and are not fed, those who are cold and are not clothed. This world in arms is not spending money alone. It is spending the sweat of its laborers, the genius of its scientists, the hopes of its children. That is a quote from the famous communist Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Zoya, are you? Well, I can preach on this all day. You know, I'm gonna hammer this home next segment. So I'm gonna show you guys this video. This is from a year ago, and you can find these stories everywhere. Like our government is just openly corrupt. And then they hear my quote unquote radical ass, and people think I'm crazy when I say stuff that is obviously looking at us in the face. People say, "Oh my God, Nick, you're so brave for saying this. Oh my God, Nick, I'm glad you said." Like, how everyone else not? That's my mindset. I'm saying the absolutely obvious. That's why it baffles me the cowardice of the NATO left and the Bernie Sanders left. Let's watch this video. This is from corporate media, what the mainstream media will admit.
The Pentagon has failed another audit, but with an expected $770
and they also,
billion
listen here, they kind of provide excuses on why they fail audits. Why should we accept this as a populace? Once again, you're gonna hear excuses in here.
The Pentagon has failed another audit, but with an expected $770 billion budgeted for the Defense Department in fiscal year 2022, keeping track of all this money is no simple matter.
It took the Department of Homeland Security a decade to pass its audit, and it's a fraction of the size of the Defense Department.
Old systems for tracking funds, a slow bureaucracy, and the sheer size of the U.S. defense apparatus have kept audits from passing since they began in late 2017.
We need to impose some kind of a penalty.
Personally, I would like to spend as little in the military as possible while achieving the important national security goals that the country has and that the people expect from the country.
After 4 straight failures, why does the Department of Defense struggle to pass an audit? The Department of Defense is responsible for defending U.S. interests around the world. Since 1988, the budget has grown from over $634 billion to over $724 billion in 2020. But the defense budget as a percentage of the total gross domestic product has actually dropped in the same period from 5.7% to 3.5%.
Like any organization in America, any large organization anyway, the single biggest expense on the balance sheet is people. And it's no different for the Defense Department.
The size of the budget is constantly a subject of debate, but for lawmakers to make informed decisions, they need good data.
The financial systems that you have in DoD right now are set up to control taxpayers' dollars, to guarantee that there is not going to be unauthorized use of it. So every use, every dollar and cent is accounted for. You can see that by the ADA violations being extremely low.
It is one of the largest organizations on planet Earth, right? $750 billion, direct payroll for 1 million people. Congress has plenty of data on the department, but they don't have useful data and they don't have visualized.
You guys see this? I think we can stop it there. All those goddamn excuses. Oh, but this. Oh my God, there's just a lot of people. Oh my God, we got so much stuff. Oh, I'm sorry, there's just a large bureaucracy. How can we possibly pass an audit? When you hear the excuses from these fucking grifters, it's incredible. You guys are making excuses for the inability to track $2 trillion. You are making excuses for failing 5 audits in a row. And whenever they are asked about this, they're like, you guys just don't understand. You guys don't understand how hard it is. How about we dismantle and shrink the Pentagon then if it's too hard for you to count your money, for you to track your shit? So, as I said in the intro video, imagine if you're a cashier, man. So this is my critique of our society. Imagine if you're a cashier and you lose $1,000 and then your manager and your boss call you out. And you're like, you just don't understand, man. We got a lot of money coming in and there's a lot of things to process. Of course I'll fuck up every once in a while. But you gotta understand, man, I'm dealing with a lot of money. That is the excuse the Pentagon uses. And people accept it. That cashier will be fired before he finishes the sentence. But meanwhile, we're supposed to accept this excuse from the ruling class. You guys see how there's no accountability ever? Police departments constantly fail audits. Pentagon constantly fail audits. Congress has like a 15% approval rating. Joe Biden has a failing approval rating. Police don't solve crime. Our hospitals are failing. 60,000 people are dying each year because of lack of health care. Our ruling class is failing, but they pat themselves on the back and get themselves fucking Nobel Peace Prizes and shit. But people are not upset. Socialist MMA is uniquely upset and uniquely angry. He need to chill out, according to some people. How are you guys not as upset as I am? Now we're gonna see another bullshit artist. We covered this before. But it's very relevant to this segment. So I'll just let this play and we wrap the segment up on this. Because this is like, whenever the Pentagon is called out for this shit, they pretend that we're just being rude, we're being ignorant peasants. Their scummy elitist attitudes is extremely off-putting to me.
I feel like these are unfair questions of somebody within a department of that size and scope. I
Do you
think
feel
you-
that
I
that
think
it's that
you're.
it's
I
somewhat
think you
unfair?
have a particular thing you really want to talk about, and you're asking me other questions. But I don't think it's unfair to ask me about the audit. It's absolutely the case that the United
Right.
States military should be able to pass an audit, and we've got to be on that pathway to get there.
But don't you think that that does speak to the larger point that we're trying to?
Yeah, I know I keep losing hundreds of dollars as a cashier, but just be patient with me, and I'm gonna get better, and I'll make sure we won't lose money maybe a year or two from now. Would that work as a cashier?
And just to add some context to this, it's the only U.S. government agency incapable of passing an audit, 5 times no less. It's capable of accounting for only 39% of 3.5 trillion in assets under its management. So Pentagon cannot account for 60% of all the assets they maintain.
God forbid you fail an IRS audit. Can you tell them, yeah, come on, man, a lot of business, a lot of money going in. Yeah, it's something we're working on. It's something, you're right. That's what you said. You're right. It's something we work on. Get back at us. We'll see what the IRS said to you. I want to call out the contradictions in our society.
Get at, which is good journalism uncovers corruption. And
Okay, I mean, good journalism does uncover corruption,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure these two things are linked. An audit is not.
but they are.
Okay, so
I told you, they think we're idiots. She think I'm a goof.
to explain to me, do you
They
understand?
think we're idiots. They think, oh well, this is us. Oops, it's an accident. We're not corrupt. How dumb do you think we are? How dumb?
What an audit does and the degree to which it is linked to the question that you're asking?
I believe so.
Okay, go
but
ahead. Give me your explanation.
No, I don't mind learning. So what I would suggest is that the audit that they have in the military doesn't really look at whether or not there's efficacy. It's just whether they got delivered the thing that they ordered. And
that is any audit. That is any audit. That is true.
But generally, those audits aren't $400 billion for Raytheon and $1.7 trillion for a plane that doesn't seem to be doing. Like, there is a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse within a system.
Audits and waste, fraud, and abuse are not the same thing. So let's decompose
Then
these
please
pieces for a
educate
moment.
me on
Sure.
what
So an audit
the
is
difference.
exactly what you just described,
Yes.
which is, do I know what was delivered to which place?
Right.
The ability to pass an audit, or the fact that the DoD has not passed an audit, is not suggestive of waste, fraud, and abuse. That is completely false right there.
They think we're fucking idiots. They think we're goofs. We're fools out here, Zoya.
Yeah,
the cashier that fails the audit is not indicative of him stealing money. Not indicative of abuse. Him failing an audit, him not able to locate $2,000. This is the gaslighting of the ruling class. Go ahead, Zoya. I know you want to chime in.
Yeah, and this is, she's lecturing the people that are paying her. And besides making, super cute pinky promises, the Pentagon failed to make any improvements from the year prior, showing they could care less about trying to pass the audit at all. There's no real oversight or accountability for one of the largest agencies on Earth. And as you heard, an audit is just knowing what was delivered to which place. Like, think about that for a moment. Our government cannot tell us what items were delivered where. Feel free to laugh in the black market.
Yeah, that's why our weapon sales lead to a black market boom in weapons. So the liberals who claim they are against gun violence, their votes and their policy directly lead to black market booms that lead to terrorists, white supremacists, and others to acquire weapons. So their problem is it shows how they are hypocrites. Correct? Any last thoughts on this topic, and we move on to BlackRock? Any last thoughts, Zoya? Let's go.
Well, the other point that John Stewart makes in that video is the treatment of veterans. So the treatment of those who fight the wars versus the companies that provide the military with the weapons. The latter half is exponentially overpaid, never denied a single lavish expense. They can't account for billions in just flights to places. The former, besides being the ones who fight, suffer, and die are disregarded and considered disposable. And the Post wrote an op-ed advocating means testing veterans benefits for those who are suffering with confirmed disabilities which were sustained in the line of duty. And they callously gloated that these reforms can save billions, while the Pentagon misplaces trillions, and veterans commit suicide. A veteran commits suicide every single hour.
That show how cruel our system is, and they would attack. I see many segments where they attack Russia and China for this. So there was a segment that lived rent free in my head where they said Russia is sending soldiers to Ukraine to die. Putin don't care about soldiers. And I'm like, bro, 22 soldiers kill themselves every day in this country, right? Like it's already grotesque, but that's just a sign that they really don't give a fuck. They really don't give a fuck. That these people are willing to do work on behalf of the empire, and they still say fuck you. My dad was in Korea. He was a driver in Korea. They denied him VA benefits for years. Years. They actively fought him. Like they'll hire investigators to try and prove his claims wrong. Openly corrupt, as I said. Thank you for the super chat, Harrison. Thank you for 999. My friends, my family. Nick and Knight is back. Let's go. Next segment, we're gonna be over BlackRock, and the way I'm gonna cover this once again with this stream and this channel is not afraid to call out the big C word, right? This is a problem within capitalism, correct? So BlackRock buying houses. I'm gonna show you guys some receipts of they responsible for all these contracts in Ukraine. They are making massive profits because of the war in Ukraine. They are buying everything in our society. What many people don't understand, and even people who got good takes generally, who are anti-imperialists, but they don't call out capitalism for what it is. They will say stuff like it's corporatism, as if corporatism is not the end result, the leading result of capitalism as predicted by Marx and Lenin. As if that's not the case. As if that's not the result of capital influencing the central planning model of your government. That what happens when capital becomes more powerful than government. Corporatism, as you guys call it, is installed. When BlackRock and capital gain as much power and influence as they have, you can't call it corporatism. This is the natural end result of capitalism, which was an improvement over feudalism, because feudalism don't even hide the pretext of the oligarchs control the land, the resources, and you bow down to them, correct? But capitalism took that, and now they got like a way to, they have a PR for it. They have a nice little shield for it. We're like, oh, well, they're not in charge of anything, even though they in charge of the land, they're in charge of the land, they write the laws, they control the mortgage rates, they control the flow of healthcare, right? Like they control so much in our society, like the lords in the feudal system did. It's just a different system. So BlackRock and these oligarchs, they are the new feudal lords. You guys understand? And this was predicted. This is a Marxist analysis. Many people on the right, like the people we show right now, will make this analysis of our system, that we have slimy, corrupt oligarchs, and they call them the deep state, which is a true thing. The right wing is willing to use the term deep state, correct? But who is the deep state made up of? The deep state is made up of a cabal of capitalists. So of course, capitalists are going to merge together and form teams to expand their power and their profits. Why wouldn't a capitalist do that? That is the result of capitalism. That is what capitalism will lead to, because they have so much power under our system. If we have a dictatorship of the proletariat, if we seize the means of production, that cuts the head off the dragon. There are a lot of people who talk about good game on this, but your solution does not solve the problem. if you still allow the free market capitalists to dominate our system. You guys understand? So that's my preface. I'll spare you guys.
And to add one more thing, as this video is going to show us, today's politicians are just a PR team for the people running the show. Yes. So our politicians are bought. This is why electoral cannot be our main focus for anything. We're not going to vote our way out of tyranny.
Well said, my friend Zoya. Thank you for super chat, Harrison, once again. Let's get to the video. I let it play for a bit because I think I made my points here. I let it play, and there's a ton of breakdown here. So let's see how. Let's check it out.
They don't want to be in the news. They don't want people to talk about them. They don't want to be anywhere on the radar.
Why not?
I don't know, but I suspect it's probably because it's easier to do things when people aren't thinking about it.
All of these financial institutions, they buy politicians. You can take this big ton of money, and then you can start to buy people.
I work for a company called BlackRock. Meet Serge Varley, a recruiter at BlackRock.
Let me tell you, it's not through who's the president. It's who's controlling the wallet. So it's
and who's that?
The hedge funds, BlackRock, the banks. These guys run campaign financing. Yep, you can buy your candidates. And obviously, we have the system in place. First, there's the senators. And these guys are rich. You got 10 grand, you can buy a senator. I can give you 500K right now. No questions asked.
Yeah.
I didn't do this. We're done.
Does everybody do that? Does BlackRock do that?
It doesn't matter who wins.
You're so right.
They're in my pocket.
Here's Serge Varley on how good war is for BlackRock's business.
Do you have any thoughts on the?
Now, before I get to this segment, because I think that's a good time to stop and break down what we just heard. He explained how easy it is just to buy a politician. And this is why I told you guys, under a system where capital is so dominant, where the proletariat don't have harsh restraints on the capitalist class, what stops the capitalists from buying the ruling class off, the government off, when the capitalist is more stronger, when they have more power than the government? So let's say you have your right-wing populist revolution, right? Let's say you get your capitalists in. Let's say you get your Ron DeSantis in. Let's say you get your Donald Trump in. There's nothing under this system that's going to prevent them from being bought off and sold off, which is why Donald Trump continued to execute Julian Assange. That's why Donald Trump continued sanctions. That's why Donald Trump continued to be a puppet of the military-industrial complex, because those motherfuckers is more powerful than he is. You guys understand? That's why the squad and Bernie Sanders, their ass sells out. Because you guys think you're going to elect someone that's going to change the system from within when the capital is more powerful than the government structures. So you get progressives in, and then the military-industrial complex telling them to vote for the war in Ukraine, and they're not asking no goddamn questions. AIPAC tell them to be progressive except Palestine. Maxwell Frost is excited to sell out. RFK not going to challenge AIPAC. He said, fuck that shit. I'm anti-establishment, but I'm not going to fight AIPAC. That's because AIPAC and capital is more powerful than RFK. And anyone who can challenge the system, anyone who running as a Democrat has no chance over private capital. Zoe, anything you want to chime in before we continue the video? Because now they're going to get to war. We can do it one segment at a time. And we can get, I see that you have a great article. We can get to that article after the video. But anything you want to add to the video before I continue, Zoya?
No, let's keep going.
Yeah, let's. I'm going to play the whole segments, and then we do a breakdown afterwards. So now this is the part you guys know. I'm a big foreign policy head. What we mostly cover on Nick at Night. So this is the part that is most interesting to me, correct? Capitalism, imperialism, they are twins. Marxism, communism is the enemy of imperialism. We got a story today. That's why China is standing for the Palestinians. The DPRK stood for the Palestinians for decades, right? Lula and many real anti-imperialist fighters stand up for Cuba. The DPRK, China, Russia stand up for Cuba. The imperialist capitalist nations support the suppression, the blockades of Cuba. They support the United States trying to overthrow Venezuela and sanctions. You guys see how imperialism is the highest form of capitalism. They are extremely, extremely related. And that is what this next segment is going to cover. So I am glad that right-wing media is covering this stuff. This is fantastic. Fantastic. Do not let a shit lib convince you otherwise. Don't let a shit lib make you feel bad because you're watching a right-wing source exposing corruption. Because it's a shame they're not doing it. I just want right-wingers to be able to reconcile their love of capitalism that leads to this, that leads directly to this. So let's continue.
Yeah, no question asked.
Yeah.
Identity is done.
Does like everybody do that? Does BlackRock do that?
It doesn't matter who wins.
You're so right.
They're in my pocket at this point.
Here's Serge Varley on how good war is for BlackRock's business.
Do you have any thoughts on the Ukraine-Russia war?
Yeah, I mean, I do have thoughts.
What are they?
Ukraine is good for business. You know, right? I'll give an example. Russia blows up Ukraine's grain silos. The price of wheat's going to go mad up. The Ukrainian economy is tied very largely to the wheat market, global wheat market. Prices of bread, literally everything it goes up and down. This is fantastic if you're trading. Volatility creates opportunity to make profit. War is great.
Hey, capitalism, is this your system? Capitalism, is this your boy? So if you're on the right and if you're a sympathizer of capitalism, do you think this guy in BlackRock is unique? Yes, he got exposed. You think this is a unique train of thought for an average investor capitalist? This is what we actually could call as disaster capitalism, how capitalism thrives on instability, chaos, and disorder, which is why standing for such a system is absurd to me. So anyway, I let the video play. Sorry.
Good for business. It's exciting when goes wrong, right? BlackRock manages 20 trillion. It's incomprehensible numbers.
BlackRock Serge Varley says all of this is above a normal person's.
So I think they finished the Ukraine part, so I'll dive in here and I'll let the next segment play. You guys see how he mentions how Ukraine is good for business. Let's see if I find a screenshot here.
Russia war?
Yeah, I mean, I do have thoughts.
What are they?
Ukraine is good for business.
Ukraine is good for business. You know that, right? Meanwhile, the deeply serious thinkers among the NATO left, like Marianne Williamson, she truly believes that the United States and BlackRock is in Ukraine out of the kindness of their hearts. That is what morons like Marianne Williamson and Bernie Sanders and Matt Duss truly believe. So in the next segment of the show, he says, yeah, it's not a big deal because this is beyond most people. And the tragic thing is he is correct. This is beyond Marianne Williamson. This is the analysis that Marianne Williamson does not and will never understand. She will not connect the influence of capital, the influence of BlackRock in the military-industrial complex on United States interests in Ukraine and provoking Russia. But she thinks she's anti-capitalist. Bernie Sanders thinks he is socialist, but he can't connect the influence of capital in this war. You guys understand the disdain I have for these people? They are a joke that no comedian can write. No comedian can write this shit. Because he's about to clown their ass in the next segment. He's about to clown them. He's literally talking about Bernie Sanders. He's literally talking about Jordan Chariton, who calls people like Max Blumenthal and Aaron Mate Russian puppets because they get the issue correct. Jordan Chariton for Status Quo called Jimmy Dore, Max Blumenthal, Aaron Mate because they call out the military-industrial complex influence on the war. So the NATO left, the dumb left, like Jordan Chariton, Sam Cedar, Bernie Sanders, AOC, this BlackRock guy calls them out directly. So I'll let it play to that point. You guys can see what I'm talking about.
You know, right? I'll give an example. Russia blows up Ukraine's grain silos. The price of wheat's going to go mad up. The Ukrainian economy is tied very largely to the wheat market, global wheat market. Prices of bread, literally everything goes up and down. This is fantastic if you're trading. Volatility creates opportunity to make profit. War is real good for business. It's exciting when goes wrong, right? BlackRock manages 20 trillion. It's incomprehensible numbers.
BlackRock Serge Varley says all of this is above a normal person's understanding.
You're like an undercover reporter. I don't know. No people don't give a shit. This is beyond them.
He's talking about Marianne Williamson. He's talking about Bernie Sanders. The influence of the military-industrial complex in Ukraine is beyond Jordan Sheridan and the NATO left. He is making fun of them, not me, not Zoya. We see through you guys. He's making fun of the NATO left who think they're better than us. Jordan Sheridan thinks he's better than us. But he's so dumb that these corrupt oligarchs is laughing at him. Every time Marianne Williamson defends Ukraine, every time Jordan Sheridan calls Max Blumenthal, Jimmy Dore, Aaron Monte, Russian sympathizers, BlackRock and the establishment are laughing at them. It is pathetic.
The whole thing of like domination from a concept is it's so interesting.
That's so fucking crazy, man. What? This is the rot. Like, look at this quote. What is this? What is this mental disease, this mental illness that our system creates with this power that they create? You guys trust people having this kind of power that creates this kind of mental illness? I want to dismantle that power. That is what I believe in. That's what communism that leads to a stateless society wants. The people do not have this kind of power. Look, this guy said the whole thing of like domination from a concept is so fucking interesting. Are you Darth Vader? Are you Thanos? Like, if I saw this in a movie, I'll roll my eyes like, come on, man. Write a realistic villain.
And this guy is just a symptom of the system. I see people in the chat are like, oh my God, this guy's a sociopath. There's a million other guys like him, you know, and he better start tweeting out that he's not suicidal or something, because after BlackRock finds out about this video, the guy's about to have an accident or something. Hillary better not see this video.
Jesus Christ, man. So I'll play a few more minutes, and you guys can always check out the full video. But I'll let it play for quite a bit before we end the segment here.
So interesting.
Hi, I'm James O'Keefe with OMG News. Here we are with our latest story, this time on BlackRock.
So that part was the kind of the compilation, but I'll let the beginning play a little bit.
One of the world's leading asset and investment managers, which owns significant shares of companies like Amazon, Microsoft, Anheuser-Busch, Meta, Target, Procter & Gamble, Comcast, CNN, Fox, and yes, Pfizer.
So you people who apologize for capitalism, you call this corporatism. My answer is, what policy that you guys have that maintain this your goal of having a free market capitalist system that prevents this from happening? Your policies that right-wing populists propose will still allow BlackRock to have a extreme amount of power because they can still buy massive amounts of shares of companies like this. They can still buy politicians because you believe in the freedom of the market. You believe a corporation is a person. So this corporate fascism will be the end result of your policy. That's why I'm generally not impressed. People are like, come on, man, Nick. Why so rude on the right-wing populists? Like, because I'm not impressed, because there's no solution to the problem that they call out. Because they believe one day they're going to be a multimillionaire themselves. But anyway, Zoya, anything you want to add on? So you want to chime in, and we continue for a little bit longer, and then we move on.
Yeah, to your point, I mean, first of all, Marxism is a science, and capitalism will always lead to this outcome, while conservatives and other people want to scapegoat the least powerful. If they really think about it, when you have competition, that means that somebody wins. If you let that continue long enough, the winner is going to concentrate capital and eventually create monopoly. And then eventually you end up with a few monopolies that can buy politicians and control everything, because money is power. So capitalism leads to this. There's no such thing as people will be like, no, it's unfettered capitalism. Capitalism leads to this. This is the outcome of capitalism every time. That is why Marxism talks about dictatorship of the proletariat, where we have true democracy, where workers get to control the output of their labor.
Zoya's love, Zoya's life. Let's continue.
Just to name a few. At OMG, we do not shy away from exposing powerful companies.
Actually, I think that's good, because you guys saw the beginning of the summary, and then he explains what BlackRock owes. So I think that's a good coverage of the video, just for the sake of time. If you guys want to check out the full video, it's around 12 minutes long. You can see the full interview. The highlights actually does a good job of covering everything that I want to. So there's quite if we go through all the receipts on BlackRock and the influence on our government, this will be forever. But I want to show you guys just how much BlackRock influenced our system. The war that all the progressives support, that all our establishment, the Uniparty supports without question, that the right, the left, and the red-blue gang come together and support. Don't get twisted just because Tucker Carlson and Matt Gaetz and a few people. And I'm going to show you guys a few Fox clips later. Fox News and Republicans were extremely excited to get rid of Tucker Carlson because, as I said, for over a year, these right-wingers who oppose the Ukraine war, they are the exception in the establishment. And I hear a lot of people get this wrong when they say the right is generally more anti-war than Democrats. Like, no, there's a few. but the majority of the Republican Party support the Ukraine war. The second that Tucker Carlson was fired, Kevin McCarthy put back on the report and said, yes, we must continue to arm Ukraine. They was super excited that Tucker Carlson lost his platform on Fox. And that's why Fox wouldn't censor him, because everyone in the establishment for Ukraine war, because BlackRock is for the Ukraine war. BlackRock gets $500 billion deal to rebuild Ukraine. What a coincidence. Surely that's a coincidence, Zoya. There's a few more that we can show you. You have BlackRock that massively buying up homes. Let me pull up this receipt. Big shout. Actually, I'll read this one here. This says BlackRock, JP Morgan Chase are reportedly aiding the Ukrainian government and setting up a reconstruction bank that could see rebuilding projects being heavily invested in by private entities. The Financial Times noted it will cost Ukraine roughly $411 billion to rebuild their country amid the onslaught of attacks by Russia, but the cost is continuing to increase. So guess who's there to profit? That's why the guy in the video said this is great for business. This is fantastic for business. This is very, very telling of our system, because this is what happened when capital get the kind of power that they have, where they can just buy up the entire government, all sections of the government, and make sure they never lose. And now another example of this, if you wonder why there's a war against the homeless that even the Democrats are waging with Gavin Newsom, the TYT left that hates the homeless, right? The Uniparty hates the homeless. They engage in vicious, malicious anti-homeless policies, like Eric Adams in New York, once again, Democrat. LA and San Francisco ran by Democrats. In Kansas City, you see anti-homeless architecture everywhere. Kansas City is ran by Democrats. The Black Congressional Caucus dominates politically here. So the Uniparty hates the homeless, and they support real estate developers and landlords because BlackRock is the biggest landlord in our country. One of the biggest landlords, I would say, just to be safe here. But you see here, is BlackRock buying all the houses? And the question, yes, BlackRock now manages more than $10 trillion in assets.
And to that point, obviously BlackRock is making housing completely unaffordable. And today I read a statistic which was surprising even to me, that in California, half of the unhoused are over 50 years old. And a nationwide statistic is that 40% of unhoused people have jobs. This is where this system has led us.
Yeah. So this is what I'll share as well. Why is BlackRock buying up single-family homes? A look at the hidden truth. So there's a lot of reporting about this. What's funny is I can show you, guys, that when you Google this, look at the influence of BlackRock. Look at this. If you Google this, I just did a simple Google search. I put BlackRock and houses. And look at the first 3 results that Google put up there. Investment firms aren't buying all the houses. Wall Street isn't to blame for the chaotic housing market. The Atlantic, BlackRock is not ruining the U.S. housing market. Don't worry, peasants. That's the first 3 results on Google. I'm sure that's a coincidence. The first articles defending BlackRock. You guys think that's a coincidence? BlackRock bought our system. Capitalists bought our system. And unless we seize the means of production, even if we get rid of BlackRock, another BlackRock will emerge. You guys understand?
Yes, there's the Vanguard group, which is second to BlackRock. You get rid of BlackRock, then Vanguard is just going to take over. And if you can click on that article, Nick, it talks to your point of kind of how that happened.
Yeah, let's go through the article that Zoya shared with me. This is from the Truth Out. Our loss is BlackRock's gain. This is from Truth Dig. First time I've seen it, but I'm glad that you raised this to my attention. How much do you know about BlackRock and the hedge funds they manage? Better bone up fast now that the folks at BlackRock are calling the shots in the government $1 trillion bailout program. BlackRock execs are now directing key elements of the government program at a time where they stand to reap great profits from the fallout of a problem they helped to create.
And this is an article from 2009. And this article shows, yes, but it talks about how we ended up here, because what happened in 2009 had a direct impact on how we ended up here. And if I can just summarize the article so we don't have to read all of it. I'm just going to read parts. So how much do you know about BlackRock and the hedge funds they manage? Better bone up fast now that folks at BlackRock are calling the shots in government's $1 trillion bailout program. As both the New York Times and Wall Street Journal reported, BlackRock execs are now directing key elements of the government program at a time when they stand to reap great profits from the fallout of the problem they helped create. The U.S. picked BlackRock to manage the assets once controlled by AIG and Bear Stearns to analyze the assets of Freddie Mac and Morgan Stanley. And as if that were not enough on its plate, the Treasury Department is widely expected to select BlackRock to be one of the few firms trusted with using taxpayer dollars to buy toxic assets from the banks, then resell them in a process that presents enormous conflicts of interest. Confused? You're supposed to be. That's the point of a successful hedge fund, a totally unregulated activity in which very rich people pool their money in order to more effectively rip off the rest of us. And BlackRock is at the top of that game, managing 1.3 trillion in assets. Now it's 20 trillion, guys. But in this round, the stakes are far higher because BlackRock, which did a great deal to cause the economic meltdown, has now been put in charge of the government recovery effort. And that basically just exposes the entire problem. So this is 2009, almost 15 years ago. And look at how giving them all this power has elevated them to this monarchy status, has allowed them to hog all of these resources and just do as they please on the market, which is totally corrupt. It's a rigged game. It's like a casino and the house always wins and we always lose.
Zoya's love, Zoya's life. Well said. Let's I think we did a good job breaking that down. Let's get to the next segment here. We about an hour in, almost. Make sure you guys like the video if you haven't already. It increases the visibility. We are already a heavily suppressed channel, so that helps out a lot. if you guys enjoy the thumbnails, and you guys want to support Aaron, who helps us out with that, because honestly, imaging and that kind of promotion is beyond me. That was Zoya know me because Zoya followed me for a while. Back in the day, I used to like, fuck, I'll just put whatever thumbnail YouTube put up. I didn't give a fuck because I'm like, man, that's not my thing. So Aaron helped us out tremendously, guys. So we want to make sure she's taken care of. We will give her a split of the Patreon as well, because we want to make sure that everyone is paid their fair labor value the best we can. So that's why we ask you guys to support our Patreon, help our brothers like JB out, help our labor. That's essentially what we are asking of. So if you enjoy this content, consider dropping $3 a month on Patreon. We would definitely appreciate that. Our next story, I'm gonna show you guys some more evidence of what I was saying earlier regarding the right wing going along with the Ukraine war, going along with fear mongering about Russia, the same way that liberals do. Like, people think that Russiagating and Russia fear mongering is uniquely tied to the Democrat Party. They think McCarthyism, the new McCarthyism, the Red Scare is unique to liberals, but no, it's literally a uniparty thing. And this segment is beyond parody. And I'm gonna explain to you as we go along. So let's get into it.
Putin issuing a worrying statement this week as tensions continue to fester between the U.S. and Russia, saying, quote, "In the event of a third world war, there will be no winners, including America." Now, this comes as Russia escalates their military offensive in Ukraine. The president of Belarus, meanwhile, has confirmed that his country received tactical nuclear weapons from Russia. So how concerned should we be, especially as Putin reportedly tells the West to go to hell at the same time? Joining us now with reaction is former U.S. Defense Intelligence Officer and author of Putin's Playbook, Rebecca Koffler. Rebecca, great to see you this morning.
Great to see you.
Remember, this person wrote a book, the Putin's Playbook. So let's hear from her. Let's hear from this amazingly enlightened thinker here.
Not just saber rattling, but almost taking the saber out of its sheath in terms of Vladimir Putin sending nuclear weapons to Belarus.
Yes, this is a very concerning development. It's strategic messaging by Putin to Washington to back out of Ukraine, to stop arming Ukraine. It is driven by fear of losing this war that he cannot afford, because the outcome of this war is existential for him. Russia considers Ukraine as part of its strategic security perimeter, and it cannot allow NATO to get as close. Just like we wouldn't allow China or Russia or Iran to get as close to Mexico or Canada. So that is why Putin is overreacting.
So, Rebecca, that
overreacting? Hold up. You just dismantled your entire argument, ma'am. She just said that Russia viewed Ukraine as existential because they had been invaded through Ukraine multiple times by Nazis, Napoleon, as well as a few generations before that. So there's a historical precedent that leads Russia to view Ukraine as a strategic security point. And then she goes on to accurately say something that even I say all the time. Imagine the reaction of the United States if the DPRK, if Iran, if China, if Russia had military bases in hostile foreign powers in Mexico, staging rebellions to put pro-Iranian, Russia, or China forces in there. She acknowledges that the United States would react the same way, and then she turned around and say, well, Putin is overreacting. Your analysis is contradictory. I want you guys to hear that part again, because this is amazing. The NATO left and these people who support NATO, they will admit that they're fucking with Russia. I really want you guys to hear this part one more time.
Arming Ukraine, it is driven by fear of losing this war that he cannot afford, because the outcome of this war is existential for him. Russia considers Ukraine as part of its strategic security perimeter, and it cannot allow NATO to get as close. just like we wouldn't allow China or Russia or Iran to get as close to Mexico or Canada. So that is why Putin is overreacting.
So, Rebecca, that's incredibly.
How is he overreacting based on what you just said? And I remember if we say what you just said, and we say this is why we should negotiate because the West is being unreasonable, you guys said we are repeating Russian talking points. And this is something that you guys acknowledge. Someone who wrote the Putin's playbook. But Zoya, go ahead and chime in if you want.
I'm going to drop another video to follow this one. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm only going to play a little bit more of the video because I want you guys to hear that gem. Let's play the follow-up and then we can get to your video. We got quite a few to break down. Hope you're in here with me for the long haul, my friend.
Honestly, terrifying. For Vladimir Putin to consider what's happening in Ukraine an existential threat, and for him to begin to talk about the use of nuclear weapons, and to extend your analogy of what if Russia were doing something in Mexico or Cuba, what is the off-ramp? We can put on screen, by the way, the number of nuclear weapons at any hand for given countries. Russia's got the most.
At the top.
Yeah. So what's the off-ramp for him facing an existential threat?
So right now,
So when you look at that graph, I want to ask Marianne Williamson and Bernie Sanders the wisdom of us trying to engage in proxy wars and provoke another nuclear power, a nuclear power that has more nuclear weapons than we do. What is the wisdom of that? For your ego? So Putin doesn't get a W? You're willing to risk nuclear annihilation of the human species because you don't want Russia to get a W. You guys are psychopaths. The doomsday clock is closer to midnight than it's ever been. Because you guys are trying to provoke this shit. Look at that graph. That's the country you want to kneel? Can you guys face reality? That Russia is a power that we're not gonna force to kneel, so we gotta coexist with them? Psychopaths in the NATO left like Marianne Williamson and Bernie Sanders can't stand the idea of another power. Western chauvinists can't stand the idea of a Slavic nation, of an Eastern nation like Russia or China being on top. So they want to risk nuclear annihilation to keep them in check. It's actually unbelievable. And then they blame Russia. They're like, "Oh, Russia is saber rattling because they're threatening to use nuclear weapons to defend their statehood and their sovereignty, the same way the United States claimed to do." You want to know the only country who dropped a nuke? The United States. Only country that has done it. And the United States policy continued to be that they have the right to drop a nuke if their national security is threatened. So Russia said we can do the same thing, and they want us to fearmonger them. If you have criticism of Russia's policy, that is directly tied to United States, NATO, and the West provoking them. Zoe, you want to chime in, and we can get to your video next.
Yeah, and Japan was already surrendering when they dropped the atomic bombs. Those bombs were dropped specifically as a warning to the Soviet Union. Yes. It was just an intimidation tactic, and we see right now the same strategy being played out with China, where 400 military bases, which by the way each cost $400 million each to maintain per year, are surrounding China, and yet China is being framed as the aggressor. Russia it's I mean, you just have to suspend all rational thinking to accept these narratives. Russia used every diplomatic means. They signed the Minsk Accord. Now Putin is showing that they had a peace agreement inked over a year ago that Biden and UK were sabotaging. Russia did not need a war. They were doing great selling gas everywhere else. But at the same time, Russia also tried to join NATO, but they were refused. So this situation, every single honest academic has talked about for decades, that this aggression, NATO aggression, is going to lead to direct conflict with Russia. And Russia absolutely had no choice, where after Soviet collapse, they saw the rise of fascism, which was completely orchestrated by the CIA, which loves to destabilize every single region. This is an old tactic. And they started flaming nationalism and all of those Nazis that were driven into hiding came right back out. They put on their old little Nazi uniforms, started having parades, and started brainwashing and indoctrinating the youth. Putin just recently played old video footage of the Banderites committing atrocities. Yes, horrible atrocities. And that is now the national hero that is on stamps outside of malls, on street signs, and in every book that's in school, being hailed as a nationalistic hero of the Ukraine. So you have to understand that when this is happening on your country's border, look at how U.S. is reacting right now to China wanting to put arms in Cuba. So there's no consistency. U.S. just wants to run the world. This video is from 1991, as the Soviet Union was about to collapse, and they're talking about the rise of Nazism in Ukraine, and unfortunately, they could not foresee how it would go. Let's listen.
Сегодня во Львове состоялся съезд Организации украинских националистов. Подробности в репортаже нашей.
Театр имени Заньковецкой. Сегодня здесь, спустя почти полвека, впервые собрались ветераны украинского националистического движения. В зале делегаты, представляющие сегодняшние националистические организации, которые возобновили свою работу здесь, на Западной Украине и украинского зарубежья. К собравшимся обратилась глава антибольшевистского блока народов Ярослава Стецко, кстати сказать, жена премьера правительства украинского государства, созданного гитлеровцами и украинскими националистами в июне 1941 года во Львове.
So as it's buffering, you guys can see that now that Soviet Union was collapsing, the anti-Bolshevik, the anti-communists decided to have a little Nazi meeting, calling it all about Ukrainian nationalism. But it's really derived from the Nazis.
Yeah, as you guys see, I started streaming this new place this week, so I gotta do something to strengthen the Wi-Fi here. Apparently, as you see in the first episode back. Anyway, let's continue the video.
В вступлениях звучала мысль о том, что ветеранам украинского националистического движения необходимо вновь объединиться и передать дух борьбы за собой.
Oh man, see, I'm gonna play from the beginning actually because I see someone accurately point out that I apologize, the banner was hiding the subtitles, so I'll play from the beginning.
Just learn Russian, guys. Come on.
Состоялся съезд Организации украинских националистов. Подробности в репортаже нашей.
Театр имени Заньковецкой. Сегодня здесь, спустя почти полвека, впервые собрались ветераны украинского националистического движения. В зале делегаты, представляющие сегодняшние националистические организации, которые возобновили свою работу здесь, на Западной Украине и украинского зарубежья. К собравшимся обратилась глава антибольшевистского блока народов Ярослава Стецко, кстати сказать, жена премьера правительства украинского государства, созданного гитлеровцами и украинскими националистами в июне 1941 года во Львове. Во всех выступлениях звучала мысль о том, что ветеранам украинского националистического движения необходимо вновь объединиться и передать дух борьбы за соборную самостийную украинскую державу новому поколению.
Receipt, Zoya. It's great to see this. Hopefully we can get this to buffer our way through. Make sure you guys support us on Patreon so I can get better Wi-Fi at my new place.
Yes,
that's the only thing I can play right now. I told you guys this is a trial show because it's the first time like CJ was with me on Monday. So hopefully I'm looking at my signals. I'm like, hopefully this thing don't cut off. But anyway, let's continue.
Вот здесь в зале сегодня, в общем, не...
Oh shit. I don't know why this video being an asshole. Zoe, do you mind summing up?
Много ваших сторонников. Давайте говорить откровенно.
Небагато сторонників. Я думаю, що ми маємо всі симпатії на Україні. Я була під Берестечком, я бачила, скільки було синьо-жовтих прапорів, національних прапорів. Я бачила червоно-чорні прапори, які є прапорами Організації українських націоналістів.
Вы сейчас проходили только мимо театра Заньковецкого. Вы знаете, что там происходит?
Нет. Не знаю. Нет. Не знаю.
Что ж, и такое сегодня возможно. Однако думаю, что у националистов любого толка сегодня большого будущего не будет.
Oh, how wrong he was.
What a fantastic. We see Zoya's love, Zoya's life. For the sake of time, so I don't keep you too much longer. There's another clip I want to analyze because it's not just Russia, it's the China fear mongering. And this clip is actually a little bit older. I wanted to get to this before. I didn't get a chance to, but I want to play this clip just so you guys can see how absurd the narrative around China is. How we just directly disrespect their sovereignty and expect them to just take it. So watch this. I think it speaks for itself.
Got this new video in showing the moment.
Look at the headline. Holy shit. The China menace. Now do you guys see why I say the United States is the most propagandized country in the world? The China menace. How dare they forgive debts in Africa and help developing countries build? How dare they lift hundreds of millions of people out of poverty? How dare they innovate public safety with high-speed rails, high-speed trains, making super malls, super residences that the world has never seen before, completely changing the way countries view a central planning model of the government. For example, China nationalized the banks, which allow them to control the cost of housing. So unlike the United States, millennials do not have a struggle affording housing in China. I still rent. The concept of me owning a home, I have long since abandoned. The thing they consider the American dream? Long since abandoned that bullshit. They're not a problem in China. In Cuba, they have a higher literacy rate than us, despite the fact they lost hundreds of billions of dollars because of Cuban blockades. You got a healthcare system that put us to shame, an education system that put us to shame. At some point, you guys got to admit the central planning model is better in other countries. So in order to cope with this fact that an alternative central planning model, some people call it market socialism. Some people criticize it for not completely ridding itself of market influences. But it's a different central model than the West that focus on building, that focus on peace. Correct? So the capitalists cannot have an alternative model exist. So they had to smear it. They had to create the narrative that leads to the anti-Asian hate and anti-China sentiment that fake liberals complain about. This headline is disgusting. The China menace. Do you guys think China's your enemy? What China doing to you? The United States. The United States rendered my family into thousands and thousands of dollars into medical debt. That's not Xi Jinping. That's something that Joe Biden instrumented. Xi Jinping and China did not implement a police state that is occupying my community's neighborhoods. That is China. What did China do to you guys? You brainwashed fucks to call them menaces. Listen to this unhinged garbage. Joy, feel free to chime in if you want to, but let's get into this video.
Chinese fighter jet buzzes a U.S. spy plane. It happened yesterday over the South China Sea. The U.S. calling the maneuver unnecessarily aggressive.
Over the what sea, Zoya? What? Did you guys hear that? Let me hear where this happened at.
Chinese fighter jet buzzes a U.S. spy plane. It happened yesterday over the South China Sea.
The what sea?
China's out of hand, invading its own airspace.
So you can see the direct disrespect of their sovereignty. And Americans just eat it up. Right-wingers eat this shit up. Yeah, let's hear it again. The audacity of China protecting the South China Sea.
A U.S. spy plane. It happened yesterday over the South China Sea. The U.S. calling the maneuver unnecessarily aggressive. General Jack Keane is a Fox News senior strategic analyst. When you see something like this, what goes through your mind, sir?
Potential mishap, certainly. I mean, this is outrageous behavior bringing two aircrafts together.
Outrageous.
Obviously, this fighter is a very high-performance aircraft, and our reconnaissance plane is likely flying a very predictable route. And it's clear.
Your what plane? Your what? Your reconnaissance plane in the South China? So you guys melted down over a fucking balloon, a Chinese spy balloon that we never got pictures of, never got confirmation of what it actually was. By the way, we were supposed to be afraid of a fucking balloon, but you got reconnaissance jets flying in the South China Sea, and you're freaking out over China's very passive response compared to what the United States did to the balloon. We shot that motherfucker down. Are you serious? Listen to this.
Likely flying a very predictable route, and it's clear harassment is what they're doing. And the United States military is kind of on the front lines of this, not too surprising, given the aggression that China has. They resent the fact, Dana, that we're spying and collecting surveillance information on them every single day. This is a very obvious means that we do it. We use all sources to do this.
So he doesn't deny it, fam. He said the Chinese are concerned that we have spy jets in the South China Sea spying on them. How dare they be concerned of us spying on them in their own territory? Do you guys see how unhinged neocon right-wing ideology is? Do you guys see how unhinged anti-China ideology is? So Joe Biden and the Uniparty melted down over a quote-unquote Chinese spy balloon that we never confirmed. Meanwhile, the United States has spy plane. He just admits it. And China doesn't shoot it down. They just fly close to it. They fly close. They're like, hey, what the fuck is that over there? And then they think, oh my God, China's been so aggressive. Are you serious? The gaslighting is incredible. Incredible. This is the party that some morons are pretending that it's anti-war. That is somehow a more anti-war. The people that are indulging in the lesser of two evils. Which, remember, me and Zoya find that a ridiculous ideology. But people who engage in the lesser of two evils and say the Republican Party is somehow less hawkish. Do you see this garbage? Back to back about Russia, about China. Don't ask a Trump supporter about Trump attempts to invade Venezuela. John Bolton in the State Department, Mike Pompeo, talked Donald Trump out of invading Venezuela. But these are the people, like Tucker Carlson does a Twitter video where he pretends that Donald Trump and the right wing is the anti-war camp. I am so tired of this clown shit.
This is a country of Karens. Like, what a Karen thing to fucking say. You know, how dare they not let us surveil them? How dare they not let us impugn on their territory? The audacity of the China menace. China's, by the way, right now, the leader on green technology and combating climate change, not America. Yeah. While the American and military industrial complex produces more pollution than 171 countries combined. China is fighting desertification by planting trees. How evil.
So China had a historic reduction of pollution and carbon emission from 2010 from 2022, 70% plus reduction. Something that humanity had never seen before. You guys haven't heard it in the West, haven't you? Literally what China did is historic. They still have challenges. They still can improve. But the improvement from 2010, remember when there was footage of people in China had to walk around with masks on because it was so thick and polluted over there, and that kind of became a culture over there. They went from that to now reducing their pollution by around 50 to 70%. I gotta find an article. I covered this months and months ago, so I gotta be careful with the numbers I use actually. So I covered it, but the production reduction has been incredible because their central planning model values what's best for the society instead of just profit. So you guys see what this clown said. That's pretty much the whole segment. So just for the sake of time, I want to show you guys this, where Anthony Blinken says something that blew the minds of these anti-China neocons. And I'm talking about in the Uniparty, in the Democrat Party and the Republican Party. If you look at this, there's quite a few quote tweets, 9.4 million views. So this tweet blew up. And this response in this statement by Anthony Blinken blew up because, as I stated before, America is the most propagandized country in the world, and most Americans don't realize that we have a one China policy, and we had a one China policy where we acknowledge that Taiwan is part of China for decades. Do you guys know that NATO acknowledges Taiwan as part of China? Meanwhile, people talk about China and Taiwan as if they are completely different entities, even though that is not United States policy. So when you see the United States propping up Taiwanese separatists, when you see Nancy Pelosi and Kevin McCarthy visiting Taiwan and promoting the separatist movement, that is in direct violation of the one China policy. So China has shown amazing restraint in consideration of these events. So in order to normalize relations with China, in the 70s, they agreed to acknowledge Taiwan as part of China. It's been a bedrock principle that normalized trade that's extremely important for the global working class between the United States and China, between the West and China. The normalization, that started with the 70s and the acknowledgement of Taiwan. That is extremely, extremely important. So when the United States, seeing China rise to be the superpower that they are today, start to violate that policy because they know that's the one way they can wage war with China, because at the end of the day, when China defeats the United States, they're going to resort to war. So in order to justify war, they're going to fuck with China and Taiwan so they can go to war with China. So a bunch of war hawks and Western chauvinists can say China the aggressor and they started it. And so actually, like, I see through it, obviously. Zoya see through it. We see through it. But it's actually amazing 3D chess, if you think about it, because look how many morons fall for it. Even Tucker Carlson, fearmonger over China all the fucking time. The right wing, this is the biggest blind spot of the right wing populists. And they think they're anti-empire. They think they're impressive. They're not impressive to me if you're falling for the fearmongering over China. I think RFK fearmonger over China as well, saying that they are developing a bioweapon with no evidence. RFK said that they're going to develop a bioweapon to attack people based on their racial background with zero evidence, implying that China is an aggressive imperial empire, which we know that is not true. But RFK is saying that because he's a Democrat, and as a Democrat, he must fearmonger against China. I don't have any problems with people going on right-wing stations, especially if you drop fire on right-wing stations. But RFK is a coward because he go on right-wing stations. He ignores Sabby Sabs, who reached out multiple times. He go on right-wing stations to fearmonger about China. But you guys think he's brave. Can't call it the Israeli lobby. You think he's brave. So anyway, let's get to this video that exposes the one China nonsense. Let's continue.
On Taiwan, I reiterated the long-standing U.S. one China policy. That policy has not changed. It's guided by the Taiwan Relations Act, the 3 joint communiques, the 6 assurances. We do not support Taiwan independence. We remain opposed to any unilateral changes to the status quo by either side. We continue to expect the peaceful resolution of cross-strait differences. On Taiwan.
So I know you guys are asking yourself, oh my God, I can't believe Anthony Blinken is saying this. And right now people are melting down over this. I have to point this out. The United States talk out of both sides of their mouth all the time. The reason why Anthony Blinken had to say this is because Joe Biden fucked up bad a few months ago when he had an interview and he said, will you respond militarily if China quote unquote invade Taiwan? He said yes. And then when that happened, the State Department and the Biden team freaked out because you're not supposed to say that publicly. You're supposed to escalate with Taiwan. This is what they call the China they have a unique strategy where they engage and escalate against Taiwan, but their public position is acknowledging Taiwan's part of China. So as Anthony Blinken is saying that, the United States is arming Taiwan with these separatists. You have Nancy Pelosi escalating with Taiwan. So then when China like, hey, what the fuck you doing in Taiwan? The United States then gaslights the world and say, hey man, remember the statement we said? When we said we acknowledge China as Taiwan as part of China? So they provoke China they provoke China on Taiwan while lying publicly based on their statements, so they can plant China as the aggressor. You guys understand that? So there are a lot more Americans who don't know about the one China policy, as shown here. Look, it's at breaking. This fucking guy, I guess. Breaking. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken gives China the green light to invade Taiwan during his visit to Beijing, China. What? So if Marjorie Taylor Greene and the right did January 6th ×3 in Texas, and the United States sent in the National Guard to squash it, will you say the United States invaded Texas? Like, you guys realize how fucking stupid you sound? You guys understand that Taiwan is 3 times closer to China than Hawaii is to the United States? And there is a very prominent movement in Hawaii that want Hawaii independence, the Hawaii independence movement. So if they started an armed rebellion against the United States to get Hawaii independence, and we send in military troops to Hawaii to crush that, would that be the United States invading Hawaii? It's an absurd position. But this is the reaction that the right have and neoliberals had when they heard this, because they never heard the one China policy, because the United States is uniquely propagandized. He said, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken gives China the green light to invade Taiwan. We do not support Taiwan independence. What a pivot from Biden's previous comment just months ago. What happened? So once again, you guys see how RBN is the only channel that's going to give you good analysis on this. No, like Breaking Points is not going to explain this to you. Breaking Points is not going to explain this concept to you. So when Biden said that was a giant gaffe. Gaffe is when you tell the truth. He told the truth about U.S. policy invading and get involved in Taiwan, right? A gaffe is when they tell the truth. So Biden was not supposed to say that because they violate U.S. policy. So people on the right don't understand that. So they heard Biden say that, and now they try and at the time, because they try and paint Biden as being soft on China, they were saying, "Oh, we don't believe you." So now they use this statement and say, "Yeah, we told you guys that Biden is soft on China and Taiwan." They don't even understand the United States strategy when it comes to engaging China and Taiwan. RBN and our allies and friends, I get Danny Haifong shout out because he does a good job breaking this down as well. Only a handful of channels will tell you this. Only a handful of channels will break down how the United States is using a dishonest strategy to paint China as an aggressor in Taiwan, where it's speaking on two sides of the mouth. So this statement right here, right when picked up and they see Anthony Blinken actually committing to U.S. policy, even though they're hypocrites. So with that said, I went pretty long there. We're almost 9 minutes in. So Zoe, I'll give you last thoughts on this segment. I think I broke down exactly what I wanted to do. Zoe, any last thoughts on this segment before you wrap up?
Well, we just see the same thing playing out all the time. From Russia to China, they're always fear-mongering. And due to the undereducation in this country, which is by design, Americans just gobble this up. They're always more than willing to think that there's always someone out to get us. When these people are building infrastructure, they're building trade routes, they're creating peace, they're actually concerned about their well-being and growing their economies, which are growing, and China will take over one way or another, no matter how much America tries to sabotage its progress. Learn Chinese, guys, because China is the future. So it's the same old tricks, and it's unfortunate we fall for them. And I'm glad we got that clarification straight from Blinken, so no one can say that, it's some Russian propaganda. We have got to get back to advocating for peace. War is horrible for everyone. War is horrible from the proletariat. So unless you're the 1% of the 1%, it's also bad for you. That funding should be going into our communities. Look at the crumbling roads. Look at the undrinkable water. Look at all of the problems we have in this country that could easily be solved. And Ben Norton wrote a great article pointing out that right now, America is squeezing all the countries that are indebted to it, and to the tune of roughly $100 billion. The 75 poorest countries are being forced to pay 35% interest rates on their debts. And this is US imposed colonialism. This is how they keep countries impoverished. And at the same time, they easily found 100 billion to send to Ukraine, which is a massive money laundering operation. In all reality, you heard from Serge, may he live to see another day, exposing how BlackRock operates and how all of these things are interconnected, and any sort of chaos, any sort of war, any sort of attack on things like wheat production is good for them because they will just trade stocks and they know how to profit off of it.
Zoya's love, Zoya's life. Well said. I'm gonna show you guys a video from our brother Nico House, and then we read some super chats here before we sign off. So for people who think that China is some sort of empire, some evil malevolent nation, I'm gonna show you guys some positions that China is taking, similar to the DPRK, that's completely counter to Western imperialism, and it shows the real reason why the West hates China, including the DPRK. The DPRK, who for decades and decades called out the West for this Cuban blockade because they were blockaded as well, called out their overthrow, them attempting to overthrow Venezuela. They also called out, in the DPRK for decades has been standing in staunch solidarity with the Palestinian people, which is even too much for RFK, right? So let's listen to this video. This is our friend Nico House.
China says enough of the fighting. They want peace between Israel and Palestine, and it is willing to help foster that peace themselves. That's right. China is saying that the only way that there can actually be peace in Palestine is if Palestine is made its own separate state and that they restore the 1967 borders. Now, this is pretty significant for several reasons. One being that there was no caveat that was included with the statement made by Xi Jinping. Usually when a superpower makes a statement like this, it's as long as Israel's okay with it. But this particular time, it seemed that Xi was determined to use China's superpowered position in the world to ensure that Palestine is given the equal representation that Israel has. But of course, I think we all know the real question is, will Israel actually play ball with China, or will they just literally use all of their money to influence all their politics like they do in the US? China said
Nico is making fantastic videos. And as you guys see, China uses their position as a superpower, their giant economy and trade that they do with countries, to influence them on the route of peace. That's how they got Saudi Arabia and Iran to agree to a peace deal. Because China is so important to both countries, China says, sit the fuck down and talk about peace. And they said, bet, because we about money too. So you see the difference for the people who think China's an empire compared to the United States? The United States used their position as an empire to squash any country that opposes them. They impose financial sanctions, create financial systems that bankrupt countries like Africa. They create SWIFT systems that is highly biased, that allow them to sanction the shit out of countries. They use their influence to promote war and conflict because, as the BlackRock guy told you, they benefit from it. The government that is paid off by defense contractors benefit from it. So the United States and the Western hegemonic machine roots for chaos, war, and death no matter what. China wants peace. China wants people to respect the sovereignty of other countries, which is why Xi Jinping backs the cause of Palestinian statehood. They can't get RFK to say that though, right? And this is based on the China peace proposal, the China overall peace statement that they sent to the global community, which is rejected by the West, by Zelensky in the United States. The Ukrainian peace proposal. What did the Ukrainian peace proposal say? The Ukrainian peace proposal said that we should respect the sovereignty of each individual country and nation. So they're respecting the sovereignty of Palestine, as you should. If you are anti-imperialist, if you respect the sovereignty of countries, you have to be anti-Zionism, which is what Nkosi Mandela, the grandson of Nelson Mandela, said on our show, which is why Nelson Mandela and many amazing freedom fighters like the Black Panthers stood up for the Palestinian rights. So if you think we're going to portray these rights in favor of progressives except Palestine and any Democrat, anybody in the establishment, you're out of your goddamn mind. So if you want to know why China backs Palestine based on their overall thesis of a proposal that will create global peace, their emphasis on respecting sovereignty, because this is what happens when you don't respect sovereignty. This is the Zionist project. This is what the Zionist project lead to. If you think Israel is a legitimate state, you are an imperialist. You are a Zionist, because Israel, as we know, exists today through the mechanisms of imperialism, because they are armed by the West, by one of the most powerful superpowers the humanity has ever seen, and they outgun Palestinians to the point where they can violate international law because they had the United States, UK, and many others backing them up, and it allows them to seize land illegally from Palestinian people. It allows them to seize land illegally from the Palestinian people. And if you don't have the courage to call this out, I'm not interested in you as any leader in any shape or form. Get in the back of the line, be an ordinary organizer, be an ordinary activist or promoter of causes. But if you're a Zionist like RFK, like Marianne Williamson, and the entire progressive left, I am not interested. Because this is the result of the two-state solution, as I was explaining to Marianne Williamson. So the people who still believe in the delusional two-state solution, which I did in the very early stages, like most people do, because we were brainwashed in the United States to believe that it's a peaceful solution. This is the result of the two-state solution. The genocide of the Palestinian people is the result of the two-state solution. The two-state solution is upheld because the United States and the West supply massive arms and gives advantage to the Israeli people over the Palestinian people. So, Zoya, any last thoughts? I think that's a good last rant for Nick and Knight. You know, I've been gone for 2 weeks. Had to hit it hard with you guys with foreign policy. A lot to talk about. Zoya, any last thoughts on this topic? And we go through super chats real quick before we actually leave.
Well, thank God Russia and China are creating BRICS. Just recently, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam, I believe, started de-dollarizing. They're doing local trade in their currencies, and Brazil and Venezuela are doing that as well. We're seeing de-dollarization happen much quicker than I anticipated. So this is all actually firing back on the United States, and they're pushing of Russia and their unwillingness to live in a peaceful world that's focused on trade and the well-being of their communities has created this vacuum for countries like China to come in and create peace. I mean, look at Syria, Saudi Arabia, Iran. They're finally signing peace deals and trade deals, and they're building new trade routes. So these countries are going to be economically strong. Even though America has military might, it's not going to help it in the long run. And I don't know how unhinged America is going to be and how many wars they're willing to start and how many bodies they're willing to sacrifice to hold on to this power that is going to slip away regardless. But I think our job here is to advocate for peace. No matter what, no matter where you stand, no matter where you disagree, peace should always be a non-controversial stance for all of us. And I just did not see the NATO left coming. I think it's partly a psyop, and the rest of the people are naive and propagandize against these countries and thinking that they're cheerleading for an underdog in Ukraine. But that is not what's happening in reality. In reality, U.S. is forcing its dominance on the rest of the world, and these countries have finally said enough is enough, and them uniting is a massive threat to America. Just like us as the proletariat uniting will be a massive threat to the power structures in this country. And I always want to bring it back to the fact that we need a global uprising in this country. And with our other countries in solidarity. We have to look past the things that divide us, because you're not going to be dying from a lack of food and water and screaming on your deathbed. At least we took care of the trans issues or whatever culture war distraction is sucking you in. And it's not to say that any of these issues aren't important. We have to stand in solidarity with anyone being oppressed, period. But we have to focus on life-sustaining priorities and unite with people and educate them. If they're not there yet, they're a product of propaganda. And if you present them with enough information, they can be flipped. And I've mentioned this many times. Nick has gone canvassing. I have gone canvassing. Flipping right-wingers is often easier than flipping liberals, because they are so entrenched in their moral superiority that they're not open to hearing facts. And there's a video that's on the RBN page of Biden talking about building the border wall way before Trump ran for president, and talking about the need for keeping immigrants out. And since we have Hunter Biden on the thumbnail, just to mention him really quick, and I was suggesting that on the thumbnail we put Biden packing his crack pipe, but we got to have some fun. Guys, our lives are passing us by, so always remember to enjoy your life, even though we're in the struggle. It's okay. Humor amongst the proletariat is part of our strength.
Some people mad at us for that. They say, how dare RBN have fun ever? How dare you guys ever have fun? Suffer. RBN should be suffering at all times. How dare we ever have fun? The movement is supposed to have soul, ladies and gentlemen. But go ahead, Zoya.
Well, to the comfortable class criticizing us having fun, I'm sorry, we know how to do it better than you. I just sense a little bit of jealousy. But tune in for our humor anytime you want. And a lot of critics of RBN, by the way, never watch the show, because constantly the things that they say would easily be debunked if they just watched the show. So
I have the dumbest critics. It's amazing. I love it. Because they say stuff that's easily and people will hate watch us because they'll see what people say, and they'll be like, damn, what the fuck is this shit? What I heard about RBN is not true. So I love it. They do advertisement for me. I see people, I see NATO left, shit libs do the advertisement for us all the time. Because they will lie about us. People will click my profile and hate watch me, and they'll realize I will lie about, and we will get 100 subscribers every single time. I love that we have the dumbest, like Jordan Cherry, we had the dumbest critics. The people who just obviously lie about us. Then people look into it for 2 seconds. They look into it for 2 seconds, like, damn, why are they lying about RBN? Why do the professional managerial class have to lie about RBN in such a malicious, blatant way?
And to that point, Jordan, in case he's ever going to hate watch or someone sends him a clip, RBN has always given Jordan credit for his on-the-ground reporting. It's just that, and that's why RBN is fair. It's not personal, but Jordan's takes are just inaccurate, and they have shifted over time. He says Jimmy Dore has shifted over time. I've watched Jordan shift over time. And it was Jordan. I was in a bunch of groups. He pushed the force the vote thing on all of us. And then once we were getting dragged for it, he kind of just slithered away and joined the TYT gang. Okay, so I see you, Jordan. I see you. Congratulations on the baby. It's nothing personal, but you're not being honest, guy.
So you guys know that Jordan was one of the first people to interview me. Do you guys know that? Look it up on Status Quo. It's there. Well, I was in South Carolina. Doing the work that they claim that they support, knocking on thousands of doors. Jordan found my work interesting, so Jordan invited me on the show. I even was with Jordan with Graham Elwood on some sort of game show he invited me on because Jordan saw the work that I did and he thought it was impressive. So then he shifted and started hating on Jimmy Dore and started hating on RBN. And then all of a sudden he don't know the work I do now. All of a sudden he's have amnesia over what he used to do. He knows what I have done. I don't like to brag about it, but he knows what I have done for the movement. I'm one of the few people that actually put the money where my mouth is. Quit my previous corporate job for this movement to knock on doors for something I previously believed in. And he understands that I made sacrifices. He knows the mutual aid events that we did because Jordan covered Rome and Tour for the Poor. But the professional managerial class is so in shambles over the rise of RBN they are so desperate to stop people from watching us because we expose them, they lie about us and say we don't do anything. They lie about us and say we cover nothing but podcasters. I did a 2-hour stream about foreign policy just now, which I do all the time on Nick at Night, covering issues that go way above the head of Jordan Charlton, which he himself admitted. Remember, Jordan said, I don't know that much about foreign policy. I don't know that much about foreign policy, but I'm going to call Max Blumenthal, Aaron Mate, and Jimmy Dore Russian.
That's not substantive enough, Nick. I'm sorry. You have to emulate, Breaking Points and Vanguard and talk about these elections 24/7. This is just not.
Only if I was Vanguard. If only I was Vanguard with Jordan Lice, who never covered foreign policy. If only if I was them, he would take me seriously. What do you guys think it is? I'm asking you guys the question. What do you guys think it is? Like, because I see a group of Black radical organizers, and I heard from my ancestors like Malcolm X and MLK that white moderates are our biggest obstacle to change, and they will be the one that smear us more relentlessly than the right wing does. So I know this because I read Black Radical Theory. So then I see Jordan Sheraton, then I see Voss, and I see Hassan Piker. These all moderates that come smear and lie about Black organizers. So I'm like, damn, Malcolm X, they hit the nail on the head. They doing exactly what they said they would do. They see us organizing mutual aid. They see Ron doing tour for the poor. CJ was just on at Skid Row doing mutual aid. I did multiple homeless runs while we fed the homeless. We gave thousands of diapers away last year. Apparently, RBN has to brag more so the professional managerial class scumbags like Jordan don't lie about us. So I guess we're gonna do that now.
And that's the thing, I'm an activist, but I'm so busy actually doing on the ground work. I don't remember to take pictures or videos or log on and brag about what I'm doing. Not to mention that certain things put you in danger, especially if you're organizing, certain protests the government might not be a fan of. We don't brag enough, but I'm all about unity. I tend to avoid whatever people's favorite, podcasters or any of this drama are, because we have much bigger fish to fry on our plate. But what I don't like is when people are attacking in bad faith. I know RBN is totally open to good faith criticism and feedback, but at the end of the day, this is their podcast. And if you don't like it, start your own. And please stop telling them what they should cover and how they should cover it. Any feedback is always going to be welcome from everything I've always witnessed, but bad faith criticism, straight up lying and smearing people, that is punching down. And if you are punching down while the establishment is doing this to us, then you're an enemy of the proletariat. I'm sorry, you're distracting us and you're draining our energy. And I hope you see the light, and I hope you come to the right side. I'm not going to cancel anyone. And Nick always says he's not about canceling anyone, but these people have to be held accountable. And to the point of the thumbnail, Hunter Biden, speaking of holding people accountable.
Oh yeah, so we gotta get to this video. Absolutely, Zoe. I don't mean to cut you off, but I don't want this to be clickbait. So let's this is how I'm gonna cover the Hunter Biden. Actually, Zoe, I want you to finish your thought, and I got one video that I want to play that's gonna mostly summarize my position on this. But Zoe, sorry, finish your thought.
Well, yeah, it's just the same hypocrisy that some of these people embody, and maybe subconsciously, because Lenin and a lot of great thinkers, they talked about this, how people living in a feudalist society subconsciously imitate their oppressors. And a lot of you act like cops. That's what you are. Yes. You are monitoring people and snitching on them. So you are little, cop wannabes, whether you want to.
There's so many left cops on Twitter. That's the entirety of left Twitter. So many people who claim to be communists and they just act like fucking cops. That's all they do. That's the perfect way to put it.
Yeah, but and that leads us right back into the hypocrisy that we see with Hunter Biden and Crime Bill Joe, who is responsible for mass incarceration of so many people, destroying families and homes, and you impact the entire family when you put a body in prison. When you put a cousin, a father, a son into jail, you have no idea how that impacts the entire family. Meanwhile, his son is on camera, smoking crack, doing unthinkable things with minors. And I want to say I have compassion for him, because can you imagine having Joe Biden as your father? Obviously he messed this kid up, and now he's, an adult doing these horrible things, which there's no way he's a happy person doing what he's doing, but yet he's never going to be held accountable. And that is the tragedy of our system and why we must take back power.
So Hunter Biden got a plea deal. There are people who are protesting Cop City. They're getting felonies. They're being charged as domestic terrorists because they had the audacity to use their First Amendment rights to challenge the police state. But Democrats are fighting to the death over this narrative that Hunter Biden did not get off easy. Obviously, the Republicans going to make that argument because it's political, right? But the Republicans don't believe in restorative justice. They believe in harsh penalties. They cheer on making George Floyd protesters and Cop City protesters domestic terrorists. And then right-wingers be like, but this. No, but. The fuck is wrong with you? Do you believe in free speech or not? This is why I don't take people like Tucker Carlson seriously. He said he claims he supports free speech, but every goddamn show, a lot of people like to watch clips, but I used to watch the full show. It was very tough to watch. This motherfucker will fearmonger over protesters all the time. So Tucker Carlson is against the establishment and the military-industrial complex, but he don't want us to be too rough when we protest them. Can someone explain how that makes sense? So we get felonies, domestic terrorism charges, because the cops provoke us and cause problems, because that's what really happened. Tucker don't include the agent provocateurs and then police engaging us first. They pretend that we're violent, even though mass majority of protests was peaceful. I was there, and the cops engaged us in tear gas children in Kansas City. Children that wasn't part of the protest. They tear gas children in the park in Kansas City. But Tucker Carlson wants you to think that we're the enemy. I was there. Was you there? For all the people who think the protest was violent, were you there? I was there. I know Comrades was there. And I was there, and there was black leaders and elders that was telling us to keep the peace. It was an educational event. We want everyone to be calm. I didn't necessarily agree, but I was going along with it. There were people, boomers, black boomers, they was going around saying, everyone, we don't, no problem. The power is in our message. All these people going around saying this shit. But the right-wing media wants you to pretend that he protests, and any black people that protest against the government are some sort of thug domestic terrorists who want to burn down their own cities. These things were started by agent provocateurs, which we caught live time. I covered this as a citizen journalist at the time 2-3 years ago. I seen other channels catch agent provocateurs in anti-cop protest, but they think we're the violent ones though. So in order to that's the narrative they run to justify the fascism they support. So they are upset because the law, they say there's a two-tier justice system, but they also implement a harsh justice system on our people while they want it to be easy against them. So we gotta understand that their solution is not in favor of the proletariat. So what I am arguing, and this is our thesis here, that we do live in a two-tier system where the capitalist class always get ahead. They always get off. While we get felonies protesting our government, Hunter Biden get a plea deal. While I had cousins who served time for drugs. Joe Biden get caught with drugs and a gun. I can only imagine, for safety of my private sector, I'll be very careful. But I can only imagine what would happen to some of my cousins and some of my brothers if they had a gun on top of their gun charge. On top of their gun charge. I mean, on top of their weed charge, I'm saying. On top of the drug charge I know people have. If they had a gun too, record is fucked. They're fucked. Meanwhile, liberals out here are trying to convince us that no, we don't have a two-tier system. The Republicans are lying. We have a fair and just justice system. And now, for people who believe this, just for the sake of time, I'm gonna wrap this segment up. I'm gonna show you the video that our brother at RBN he highlighted for me. Look at this video, and I'll give you thoughts after this.
If you have a piece of crack cocaine, no bigger than this quarter that I'm holding in my hand, $1/4 of $1. We passed a law through the leadership of Senator Thurmond and myself and others, a law that says if you're caught with that, you go to jail for 5 years. You get no probation. You get nothing other than 5 years in jail. Judge doesn't have a choice. Under our forfeiture statutes, the government can take everything you own, everything from your car to your house, your bank account, not merely what they confiscate in terms of the dollars from the transaction that you just got caught engaging in. They can take everything. I don't care why they become a sociopath. We have an obligation to cordon them off from the rest of society. They are in jail, away from my mother, your husband, our families. So I don't want to ask what made them do this. They must be taken off the street.
You guys think this guy is better than Trump? Dr. Cornel West, this guy's a fascist too, sir. And we're going to talk about this on the 28th when he's going to come back. This guy's a fascist too. So we talk about how Jordan Cheriton lied about RBN. You guys want to know why Jordan Cheriton hates me so much, despite having me on this show, despite being friendly with me for a while? Because I held him accountable. You was a fake progressive around us. Then when things got hot, you voted for this guy, Jordan Cheriton. Jordan Cheriton, status quo, voted for this guy. So I held him accountable for that. So since he didn't like me holding account for that, he has to tell lies about RBN because he can't tell you the real reason why he don't like me. Because I am not okay with people who infiltrate our space and then you vote for this scumbag. So I held him accountable. We called him out. So he lies about us now because of that. You got Bernie Sanders, Rashid Tlaib, all came out and endorsed Joe Biden. You got Crystal Ball, all these people that telling you to vote Democrat. Cal Kalinske said if you're in a swing state, you should vote for this psychopath. But people wonder why we call them out. These people who want to infiltrate our space and convince us to vote for these psychopaths. And my question for them, what would their reaction be if RBN told people to vote for Trump? Zoya, can you imagine? Can you imagine the ratios? Can you imagine the videos? If we had multiple segments, multiple tweets where we told you to vote for Donald Trump. So here's a guy who has a record that is worse than Trump. He is the same guy as Trump at minimum. But you guys endorse him and vote for him, and you guys don't want me to shame you the same way you would shame us if we vote for Donald Trump? Jordan Cheriton is status quo. Shame on you for voting for this guy. You put a microphone in front of people's faces to profit off of their suffering, but when things get tough, you're gonna vote for their oppressors. I find that deeply unimpressive. Jordan Cheriton makes more than 80% of workers benefiting off the suffering of others, but he's gonna vote for their oppressors like Joe Biden. That's why you don't like us, because I'm holding their feet to the fire and they're not used to that. Because I find it disgusting that anyone who knows something, I told you guys, generally the people who are propagandists, I give grace. I give grace to the person who working 50 hours a week, who have kids who don't got time to read all the shit I do. And you were tricked by people like Jordan. You were tricked by TYT. I don't have funk for you. I don't have heat for you. I have heat for people who know better. Jordan covered Flint, Michigan, but he endorsed and voted for the guy who was the vice president that covered for the Flint process. You don't understand why that doesn't upset me? You profiting off our pain, but you're enabling our oppressors. These are the things I challenged him on, and he can't handle those criticisms. That's why he smears us. I just want to let you guys know. That's what he won't tell you on the Vanguard, on Due Dissidence. But that's the real reason why they don't like RBN, because my criticisms are too scathing. Last thoughts, Zoe. We're 2 hours in. This was a great show. Good return show for Nick at Night. Zoe, any last thoughts on this segment? And I'll give you last overall thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. This is super personal for me because I have brothers and sisters rotting in jail that have been victim to this 5-year mandatory minimum that the judge's hands are tied. So even if the judge thinks you deserve less time, he still has to give you 5 years. And this system has put away so many people. So first of all, I want to emphasize that addiction should be a health issue, and every country, every province where it has been treated as such, addiction has fallen and people recover and society is better off. So vilifying people for these addictions is absolutely disgusting. It's dishonest and it's anti-science because every study shows us that legalization actually opens a door to treatment. Legalization is not an endorsement. Legalization just decriminalizes the process, and you can easily look at alcohol, which was temporarily criminalized here under Prohibition, and we saw a massive uptick in crime. That's how you got Al Capone and all of these gangsters. And then the moment that alcohol was legalized, the criminality around it went away because now there's no room for a black market. The drug black market is fueled by keeping drugs illegal, and you cannot keep drugs even out of prison. So if you cannot keep drugs out of prison, how are you going to keep it out of a supposedly free society? So our entire mentality to drug use has to shift. But the only reason that drugs are illegal, as we know if we study history, was because Nixon said that he had to find a reason to lock up black activists and anti-war leftists. So this is political. This is an attack on the proletariat. First of all, they funnel the drugs into our neighborhoods. Then they criminalize us for using them and falling victim to these addictions. So we have to get out of this punitive mindset, even for Hunter Biden. I don't want him to go to jail. I want no one to go to jail. But the justice system cannot be this uneven where anybody that has access to wealth or power can get away from things. But the working class has to pay for it. And that goes back to the fact that 75% of people sitting in jail have never been charged with a crime. They simply just cannot afford bail. So this is a class struggle. This is always about attacking the proletariat and keeping us oppressed. And Jordan, if you think that this kind of coverage is not substantive enough for you, feel free to hit unsubscribe. And really, in general, even if Jordan were to say, I'm sorry, I was wrong, and shift on the issues, I would leave the door open to him. But while he empowers these people, that can absolutely not be the case, because he is going to lead us down a reactionary road that is going to divert from revolutionary action. And I'm sorry, but that is dangerous for everything I've dedicated my life to. And if you think I'm saying that just for clicks, I'm sorry, I think you're the one talking for clicks, and you're uninformed on a lot of topics. And if you watched RBN, you would actually be more informed on foreign policy and a lot of topics. But to close off this entire segment, we covered so many topics. We see the same game being played. We see the players, BlackRock, Vanguard, all these corporations. They say it out loud. They own our government. Lobbyists write the laws in this country. You can Google it right now. It's not a hidden fact. And so many things are now being done in the open, and we're being flooded with all of these, with all of this information. It's so inundated that people get overwhelmed and they want to disconnect. So I just want to land us back down to Right now, there's a UPS strike happening. The writer's strike is still happening. Labor organizing is growing very strong. Even though union leadership is betraying a lot of people, which, by the way, if your union is not representing you, withhold your dues and organize within your workplace to take down your union leadership. Do not roll over for the establishment so easily. We have power in our labor. You can organize locally. You can help someone today. There's a lot you can be doing. Do not get discouraged and do not get overwhelmed by this system. We are a beautiful, proud, compassionate, strong people. Look at what we endure from the system every day, and we still find room to laugh and love each other. They cannot beat us. We must find a way to unite ourselves and put boots on the ground towards action. And Stop Cop City, you can go to stopcopcity.org and you can help even from your living room, even by boycotting the companies that are funding this. And recently, they are a perfect example, which I'm so glad it happened in a national spotlight. Because I have been through this myself. Stop Cop City was told to follow the rules, do it the way the establishment told you to. And they did. And they submitted hundreds of hours of testimony at city council. And right now they were trying to submit a petition to city council, which the city council illegally blocked every way possible. And it took for them to file a lawsuit to force the city council to accept the petition. And that's exactly the kind of thing I've seen the establishment pull all my life. They hold all the cards and they don't play fair. So for the, crystal ball and whoever else who wants to tell us to grow up, I don't want any of the youth falling for these tactics. We are grown up. I have been through this system. We did do it the way that you told us to. And it does not work because the system is rigged. So stop selling snake oil to people and stop giving them false hope. We have to organize in our neighborhoods and we have to stop following dead ends because we have precious little time and we see our people dying. Our people are dying. And that is serious enough for us to not be patronized. You do not get to condescend to the working class that is hurting and telling them to try things that absolutely will not work for them. You are comfortable, good for you. We are not. And if you cannot relate to our suffering, at least get out of our way while we fight in this struggle for our liberation. But love and solidarity to all my people.
Zoe is love. Zoe is life. There's no way I can follow that, so I won't even try. Hope you guys enjoy the stream. We'll be back at Nick Night next Wednesday. Dr. Cornel West will be back for the follow-up interview on the 28th. So stay tuned. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Support us on Patreon if you enjoy the show. Much love, my fam.